Hello and welcome. My name is Ryan Johnson, and boy, do I have a treat for you guys today. As many of you probably don't know, Peisner Johnson has reached his 30th anniversary. That is a big deal, especially for us. We're really excited about the occasion. And I thought this was a perfect time to sit down with Jerry Peisner and Annie Johnson, the two founders of Peisner Johnson, and ask them how they got started in their careers, how they met each other, what led up to their decision to start Peisner Johnson, and why sales tax of all things. And I really enjoyed hearing their story, and I know that you will also. So, without further ado, I will let them take over. And like always, I hope to see you guys on another one.
Okay. All right. So once I graduated, my first job was with the Texas Comptroller's Office. I became an auditor for the state of Texas, and that was from the period 1975 until around 1980 when I left to go to work for Dresser Industries. That is an energy. They had multiple industries they were involved with. In Dresser, I went to work for them in their state and local tax department. Primarily started out in sales and use tax, and I was responsible for filing returns, handling sales tax audits. At the time I went to work for them, I only knew Texas tax. Well, that changed a lot because they had operations in almost every state. So I was dealing with state and local tax issues for multiple states, and that gave me my entry into all these different states. I also was involved in their state income franchise tax return side of the practice as well. And so I did that for approximately 5 years. And then I got a call from, I guess, a headhunter. And I left Dresser and went to work for Arthur Young.
Jerry, it's a good thing you left Dresser because Dresser is no longer in business.
Were they bought it by Summerjay or somebody?
Halliburton.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was Halliburton. I think you're right.
And General Electric. So this is actually a theme that's going to recur in your history.
Right.
Because then you went to Arthur Young.
Right. And as a matter of fact, when I was with Dresser, a little side note, I worked for a guy by the name of Chris Collis. Chris was the head of the state and local tax department. And I think if you remember, Chris Collis and Brent Ryan went out together and formed Collis and Ryan.
Right.
So there was that connection right there. After I left Dresser, I went to work for Arthur Young again in their state and local tax department. It was something they were just begun in the Dallas office. Actually, I worked for their Houston office, but I worked in the Dallas office. And one of the tax managers from Gulf Oil had been hired by Dresser, and he was trying to form their state and local department. So that I went to work for that gentleman. I think he's passed away.
Arthur Young does not exist anymore either.
Arthur Young does not exist. They went away, I think, around 1989. It was bought by, I guess, Ernst & Winnie, and Arthur Young merged together and became Ernst & Young. And that's when I left for Arthur Andersen, solicited by a guy by the name of Charles Chance. You may know him. Charles was with Arthur Andersen, and I think he was manager of the state and local tax department there, and they were trying to broaden that department and expand it. And I went to work for Arthur Andersen, and I met a young man by the name of Andrew Johnson, who had just come over from their federal practice.
This is where our paths intersect.
Yes, that's where
Before I forget it, there's only one company that you ever worked for in public that still exists. That's Peisner Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. They all went away, right? Arthur Anderson got creamed with the lawsuit years later. And yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
Who would have thought
Yeah,
Peisner Johnson would outlast Dresser, Arthur Young, Arthur Anderson,
right,
still
right,
going strong.
right.
But yeah, this is where our paths intersect. And I was working at Arthur Anderson at the time. I had just decided, I don't know if I had decided before you were there. I think I decided after you were there because you were part of my decision. But I had worked a little bit in the state and local tax department at Arthur Anderson in Dallas. But I was a federal tax guy, and I only did it because I happened to be sitting in the same area where Charles Chance was, and he asked me to help on some projects. And you learn in public accounting that you should never turn down work. You should always do whatever people ask you to do. You never know what benefit it could be. So I realized that clients really valued the work that we did, which was quite the contrast from the federal tax side, because that was like 1989, 1990. I think that's about when I switched over. Yeah, Jerry, I'm pretty sure I switched after you were there for a while, but we definitely worked together. And that was really one of the decisions, one of the reasons why I moved over. It's because you were there. But remember, we had the Tax Reform Act of 1986, which
Right.
eliminated
And
passive losses and all these things. And so it just wasn't as sexy to be a federal tax guy anymore because the law just got more complicated and you were always paying more tax. So our answer to our clients was, hey, we know everything so well that you're gonna have to pay more tax than you thought. And by the way, it's so complicated, you're gonna have to pay us more. So it was really a very bad message. And I was unhappy, working a bunch of hours of overtime, and the clients weren't happy. So I was already trying to think, what else could I do that's not tax related? I think I want to do something else. And so working in the state and local tax practice, even though it was like a foreign language to me, the words you guys were using didn't make any sense. I had no college background in sales tax for sure, but I could see that clients were happy with our work and didn't think we billed them enough. And at Arthur Anderson, that opened my eyes. And I said, well, I've got to learn this stuff because I see that this could be a good business to be in. And I really enjoyed working with Jerry and Charles. And when I made my decision to switch over full time into that state and local practice, I remember a lot of people, partners, managers, telling me that was a dumb decision. You're throwing away your master's degree. And I don't know, but I wasn't swayed by any of that. I knew that what I was doing I just knew it was the right decision. I don't know how I knew it, but I just knew it was the right decision. So nothing, if anything, anybody that criticized my move, I mean, they were welcome to their opinion, but I did lose a little respect for them because I thought your reasoning is lousy. Your reasoning is not right. It doesn't. So anyway, I switched and never looked back. Good thing.
Good move, partner. Good move. So yeah, that's kind of the way we met, and we just had a great meeting of the minds and worked really well together and liked each other, and so that's how the friendship started. And so
I think as I look back on the whole Arthur Anderson experience, by the time you got there, I had been there for a couple of years, promoted to senior, but I had learned kind of how it works, how how you have to talk to partners, how you talk to managers, how you get things done internally, billing rates, timesheets. I don't know. I had a lot of exposure in that world. But Charles and Jerry both, Jerry at least had come from public accounting. Charles came from being an auditor for the state of Louisiana.
Right.
So this is no criticism, because nobody loves a good redneck more than I do. But Charles was a little raw, we should say, for the kind of the button down Arthur Anderson types. And so navigating the politics, the internal politics at Arthur Anderson was difficult, especially for Charles, and to a lesser extent Jerry, because Jerry came from Arthur Young, and Arthur Anderson kind of saw themselves as, nobody can tell us what to do. We know everything. So it could be difficult to navigate internal politics. And so while I didn't know state and local taxes, I did at least have a pretty good understanding of how internal politics worked, and good relationships with partners and managers. And I think maybe you have a totally different perspective, Jerry, but I think that's one way I contributed to our budding partnership in the state and local tax department, is I kind of helped facilitate internal interactions.
So to move on to the next question, how did you guys make the decision to then split off on your own? What was the turning point, and how did you guys conceive Peisner Johnson?
All right, Jerry, I'll be interested in your answer to this.
Okay. Well, we actually had sort of a gun to our head, if you want to put it that way. And right before we left, Arthur Anderson, I'm not sure this is something we want to include in the podcast, but I'll just tell you one of the things that happened. Arthur Anderson decided that we needed to sign some non-compete agreements. And so Andy and I had been talking about actually venturing out on our own. We saw some other folks had done it, and we just said, that's not a bad idea. I mean, we were gamblers at the time, and we were really strongly considering it. And again, at the same time, Arthur Anderson wanted us to sign some non-competes. And we had some very good relationships with some of the clients we were working with. And we felt like, if we went out on our own, maybe they would give us some business. And so I would say that was one of the factors that kind of pushed our decision forward, was that fact that, if we signed this agreement, we would be kicking away potential business to start out with. And we always thought we could get new business, but it would just be helpful if we had a few people that would come with us or that would use our services.
Yes, you remind me of something I kind of forgotten about. There had been some people that had left the firm and started their own firms in different practices, federal practice, and several clients had opted to go with them as opposed to stay with Arthur Anderson. And to this point, Arthur Anderson was, they're very arrogant back then, and they felt like nobody could survive outside of the cocoon of Arthur Anderson. So they really had no risk when someone would leave the firm. But there were several key defections in the Dallas office, and they took some clients with them. And there was nothing against the law in that. There's no agreement. Nobody had an agreement not to work for clients. So Arthur Anderson decided, and I don't know if it was firm-wide or just in the Dallas office, but they decided that everybody who's manager needs to sign a non-compete. And you should have seen everybody bowing up, like, no, I'll never sign that. To a person, I believe, every manager in the tax department anyway, said, there's no way I'm signing a non-compete. And Jerry was like, yeah, I'm not signing it. Well, out of, I don't know, how many managers did we have back then? 20? Out of 20 managers, 19 of them did sign their non-compete agreement, and only Jerry didn't. And I've always respected Jerry for that because, that's quite a step. And so, if you didn't sign it, and I was not a manager then, you didn't have to sign it until you were a manager. So that was like, I want to say January of 1992, roughly.
Sounds right.
Pretty close to then. So Jerry headed out on his own. And for a while there, we had talked about it from time to time. And of course, I was anxious by this time to go out with Jerry or do something different. By this time, I had decided without Jerry there, I was leaving the firm. I was going to do something else. I didn't know what. And Jerry was, understandably a little bit concerned with, taking on that type of additional risk. And so in my mind, I had made up my decision and I was looking for something else. And so there were several other opportunities that came up. One was back east in Pennsylvania, one was in Kansas. I remember very well. And I was kind of keeping Jerry informed of what my plans were. And so I actually had a trip scheduled to go visit with this one company in Kansas. And Jerry said, listen, just cancel that trip. We'll start our own firm. And so that was it. I canceled it in June 15th. And I started giving my notice at at Arthur Andersen. And again, the same people were like, you are out of your mind to leave Arthur Andersen. There's so much promise for you here and you're crazy. And I didn't feel like I was taking on such a big risk. After all, I had $6,000 in the bank and I felt pretty good, even though we did have child number 4 on the way. We would have insurance for enough time that baby number 4 would be born. And I had all this money in the bank. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? Looking back, what could have gone wrong? A lot of stuff could have gone wrong.
As I think about it, even at the time, I didn't feel like it was a great risk. And Diane, my wife Diane, was also on board. I couldn't have done it if she wasn't on board. And thank goodness Coco and Diane were both on board with this.
Right.
And it's not like we signed big lease agreements or, we weren't signing up ourselves to a bunch of debt or anything like that.
Exactly.
And we both felt like if it doesn't work, I didn't really give much thought to it not working. But I also knew I could get a job somewhere else. So, as long as I could make 6,000 work last, then, but I never, I don't know, Jerry, your mindset, but I never went into it thinking it even had a chance. Now, a year or two in, I started to worry, but I never went into it, partly because we had such good, you had already had relationships with several large companies that were already giving you work. So it's, even though you think about, wow, I wasn't even 30 years old. We had 3 kids, 1 on the way, and you had 2 little kids.
Yeah.
And neither of our wives worked, so we were the sole breadwinners. Now I would be too nervous to do something like that. But back then I was too young. And plus I trusted that we could make it work together.
Right. And I got to say, I was as nervous as you were. I had a little more money in the bank because I was older, but I'd walk around the block thinking, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? And I remember, I think the turning point was you made the suggestion, we need to get a salesperson here. We were doing both. We were selling a little, and then we were doing some work. We were selling.
Well, wait, before you tell that story, I got to tell one story that's riveted in my mind is, we had to work and then we would get paid. And so we had this one client, who I'm talking about, that thankfully gave us work to do. And I will never forget, and hopefully I'm not wrong, so we did a bunch of work working on this big sales tax audit for this large semiconductor company. And, if we just added up our hours, and man, we were working hard, head down with our brand new little Toshiba laptops,
Right.
and working this audit and having success. But when we did the bill, when we put together the bill, it was 18,200. That was our first bill. Does that number ring a bell to you?
No, I don't remember that, but go ahead.
Never forget it. 18.2. And I was, think about it. I had just been promoted to manager at Arthur Andersen, but I had 2 years of experience in state and local tax. And so we had created this bill, but just because you create a bill doesn't mean anything. Now you got to sell it to the client. So Jerry gets on the phone and I'm sitting there just kind of watching, and I'm nervous because, man, this money means everything. By this time, we've worked for a month with no pay, right? So Jerry gets on the phone, he's talking to the client, and finally Jerry says what the number is. I'm like, pins and needles. What's this guy gonna say? And he says, it's fine. I'm like, holy smokes, $18,000. We're about to build this stuff. And then he says, now, Jerry, we don't pay here for 45 days. Is that going to be okay? Remember that?
No, I don't remember. I'm glad you have a good
I never forget this. And so Jerry's like, sure, not a problem. So we start the firm. Of course, I had this war chest, $6,000. What do I got to worry about? We do all this work. We're not sure we're going to get paid, but then he says yes. And then we got to wait another month and 15 days to actually get the money. But yeah, that's exactly what the money was and how long we had to wait. I'm surprised you forgot that, because
I didn't forget that.
45 days, you don't remember him saying that's our payment terms? You're like,
No, I didn't remember that.
you're
I know
killing
what
us,
you're
man.
talking about, but I did remember those being the payment terms and stuff. It's quite a while ago.
Our other great client at the time was Dr. Pepper.
Right.
And the only stipulation we had there is our client contact could approve bills, but they had to be under 5,000.
Right.
So we would always, every 2 weeks, we bill them, and Jerry always wanted to make some variation. It couldn't just be $49.99. It had to be $4,600 one time, $800.
Oh gosh, you can't.
Man.
No.
Oh, the tension of just trying to.
Right.
We were willing to work, and we worked hard.
Right.
Yeah. Oh man, just
I-
to get paid. Nerve-wracking.
I could. I don't know if we want to talk about the FBI story. You remember that? That was just, to me, that was hilarious. Just hilarious. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the Dr. Pepper person that was FBI was coming in to do some investigation.
Right. Right.
Something simple, and he like really went nuts.
And we were doing some work for, I believe it was, they had a location in Missouri, and we were doing some work trying to figure out how to save them some money. And so, we had put together some options for them. And what we didn't know, though, was I think it was the person, some person they were working with, completely unrelated to us, was under investigation by the FBI. And so it didn't have anything to do with Dr. Pepper, but they wanted to talk to Dr. Pepper about this individual. So since we hadn't been working, and again, it had to do this, I think, with this Missouri operation. So the FBI came in, and I believe it was a controller that he just was flustered. He didn't know what to do with this thing. And he sat down with the FBI, and their in-house counsel told him, "Are you crazy? You didn't let me know about this? You're sitting down with the FBI." So he, correct me if I'm wrong about any of this, but again, this didn't have anything to do with us. It was all about this other company.
Right, but they were overpaying a city income tax or something. And so we were suggesting ways to reduce it. And there had to be a business reason for it or something. And he was like, wow, that sounds a little shady, which it wasn't. But then it happened to coincide with this FBI investigation.
Exactly.
Our tax advice was drawing the attention of the FBI or something.
Right, exactly. And so the controller came, he basically kind of lost it. He got so scared. He said, I'm not going down by myself. This is
Taking you all down. Okay.
I know it. So it was a bunch of nothing is what it was. But you talk about getting things stirred up again. It had nothing to do with us. We never had any issue. We were never contacted by the FBI. Any of the questions didn't have anything to do with us. It was strictly, again, some other
Unrelated thing.
violation of the law, potential violation of the law somebody else was involved with. But we just laughed about it. And once we heard it, we did, us? What could we have done wrong? So anyway, it was just.
But speaking of the hinge points, though, we had those great clients to start out with. But when you look to the future, a year or two in, and these projects, sales tax audits and sales tax refunds for these two different companies, you could see where those would be eventually ending. They wouldn't go
Right.
on forever.
Exactly.
We had to start to think, what should we do? We need more clients. And so to this point, we had, tried, and we had a lot of client meetings, but we really hadn't been successful in adding more to our client base. And right at this time, in this time period, I guess before then, it was illegal for accountants and attorneys to advertise and sell their services. That seems so foreign in our day to day, but that's how it was. And then that got determined to be unconstitutional. Who knows what? Anyway, the law got changed, and so we didn't pioneer this. We had seen other firms hire salespeople, and so we decided that's what we need. We can do the work or sell the work, but it's really hard to do both.
Exactly.
So we decided to hire a salesperson, full-time salesperson.
Right. Oh.
Yep, our first salesperson, Paul Tesoro.
Yep.
Guy from New York City.
He was good. He was good at what he did.
Yep. Well, we had a lot of great ideas for how to save companies money.
Right.
And we just needed to get in the door, really. That's all we needed. And so we were already sharing an executive suite. And when we were interviewing potential salespeople, we would interview them in the common conference room. And we weren't really trying to look like we had this giant firm, and it really didn't occur to us. But when we hired Paul, the day he came to work for us, we met him at the front door and walked him back to our one room. And Jerry moved his computer from his desk over to where the printer was. And Jerry reestablished a desk on the computer, on the printer desk, and said, "Okay, Paul, here's your new desk." Paul's looking around like, "Wait a minute, this is the whole firm?" Oh, I didn't realize you didn't realize that. But yes, welcome to the firm, and you should be getting on the phone. And we'll be working over here. You get on the phone over there. That's how we started.
Right. We were at a small office at it was off of Spring Valley and Midway. It was the Co-American Bank building was in the first floor, and it was an executive suite. And I guess we stayed there maybe a year before we moved over to 3030, I think, wasn't it?
Uh-huh.
Year after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we occupied the second floor. We had some spacious room there. It was compared to what we had before.
Very nice room.
Yeah, it's great. Definitely great. Those were good old days. Good old days.
There were better days to come, though.
Right.
Didn't know it.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
remember one of our earliest attempts with Paul. We knew we could do some good work for General Motors. Remember?
Yep.
And General Motors was a client of Arthur Anderson, and we had tried to get General Motors, but when we were at Arthur Anderson, and they had a plant in Arlington, and so we tried and tried, but there's a lot of gatekeeping going on at Arthur Anderson, and so you have to kind of get in line, and so we never were able to get to the front of that line. But we had Paul call them direct, like, "Hey, General Motors, the biggest company in the world, we need to meet with you." And so they gave us a meeting, and their tax department came down to their Arlington plant. We went to their Arlington plant, and man, was that a scary time. And we pitched them, and guess what we got from General Motors? Zero. I'll never forget all this, the dreaming we did though about
Yes, we could have saved him a fortune.
General Motors, man. We could retire. That was
Yes.
the kind of thing that we talked about. We had another really big pitch we did for Citgo Petroleum. And for that, we had to travel all the way down to Corpus Christi. And I just remember being so nervous. I could barely talk. I was so nervous trying to pitch their tax department. I had made friends with the tax manager back at Arthur Anderson, kept in contact with her forever. Finally got the opportunity to go pitch working on their Texas sales tax audit, which was going to be huge. So me and Jerry went all the way down to Corpus Christi, made our pitch. Zero. Nada. So there was a lot of tense moments wondering what our future held for us.
All right. But we were shooting big. We were trying for the big ones.
Big companies, big companies.
Well, I remember just growing up, and one particular story is we were walking in San Antonio, and we passed by this old theater. And Andy, you said, you see that sign they have up right there? That's because of some work we did, helping these old historical theaters. Some about they could, if it's a historical theater, then they don't owe sales tax on ticket sales. And so I definitely have memories of that as a kid, just how proud you were that you're able to help these people.
Right.
And I remember when I first started working for Peisner Johnson, Jerry had me come to his office. I don't remember if you remember this. And he said, let me tell you one of the great things about working at Peisner Johnson. I was like, okay. You said that, you get to help people. I mean, you're not just, here to make a bunch of money or whatever goal you might have. Here, we get to help people. I mean, these people could be in serious, dire straits, possibly losing their business. And we get to help those people. And that's definitely a theme that we've tried to, progress here at Peisner Johnson is we focus on the individual, and you're not just a number or just a ticket we're working on. You're a person that we want to connect with. So these are all great stories. And I kind of wanted to ask you about what are some key moments, key things that have happened throughout Peisner Johnson's history that has got it to where it is now.
Let's see.
Well, one key was deciding that hiring salespeople was not, for some people, it was very distasteful, that you would have salespeople. And I just never thought of it that way. I always thought there's a lot of good that we can do for people. But we need to, it's like 1 out of 100 companies that we can really do some good for. So it's not very efficient to talk to 100 companies. It's much better if we could have somebody that just got us in the door. We knew if we could get in the door, we would find a way to save you money. So I think that was very unusual at the time. Now all the firms have salespeople,
Right.
but back then it was very. In fact, we tended not to mention it because it was such a negative in certain people's minds. Tax managers, you have a salesperson? I don't want to talk to a salesperson. So yeah, I think that was one major thing for us to do. What do you think, Jerry?
Oh yeah, I think that helped us grow greatly. We hadn't had the sales people working on our behalf. I don't think we would have been nearly as successful as we are. It would have been very difficult for us to do the cold calling and do the work, and you just can't do it. You just can't do it. We used to keep track of our salesmen, and Marshall, I know, was a star. I mean, he got more contracts in than anybody. Remember, we used to keep track of everybody. And
Oh yeah, I remember his record month was 11 contracts.
oh yeah, yeah. Marshall could sell the heck out of this business. He was amazing. And then it's calling was not the way to do it. After a while, it just faded out. Brian, as we were discussing earlier, you got podcasts, you've got, people don't want to be contacted directly. There's too many scammers, and they just have a distaste for getting personal calls, solicitation calls. But in the old days, that wasn't the case. Maybe some people didn't want to speak to you, but a lot of them were happy to listen. And we were able to get a lot of work that way that we never would have gotten. It was for the internet, obviously. But yeah, that was the way to do it. So
I think another very key thing that we did is early on, most of our work was either fighting sales tax audits or finding ways of saving money for people, getting refunds.
right.
And those tend to be one-off projects for people. And so we realized, even though neither Jerry nor I had experience in this particular service, we realized we needed to, we did all this work to get in the door, and we had very good relationship with our clients, and we needed something that we could do for them on a recurring basis. And so we decided that we needed to start doing sales tax return services. And we made the really brilliant decision to try to write our own sales tax software.
Wasn't easy.
Why was it a brilliant decision? Because we quickly learned that that's not what we should do.
Exactly.
The software part of it.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
We realized that was much bigger investment than we were willing to take on to create our own software.
Right.
But slowly, and I mean very slowly, we were able to build our sales tax return practice into something that really now I'd say is probably our flagship service.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing
how well we do that service and how much our clients love us.
Right.
And really, the only thing Jerry and I can take credit for in that world is that we invested in it and we decided to do it. And even though we lost money for a number of years, so that's what we can take credit, is that we decided to do it and we kept pushing it.
Right.
But as for actual sales tax returns, Jerry, how many did you personally do?
Zero. Never touched it.
Even before at Dresser, did you ever?
Yeah, I did it at Dresser, and I couldn't tell you today what kind of software it was. I don't remember. It wasn't on a PC. It was some sort of
punch cards.
It was now on punch cards. Yeah, I was trying to think of what we were operating there, and I couldn't even tell you. But it was a system that you could input data and you could get returns off, just paper returns. Obviously, there was no electronic submission or anything. But I was trying to think, what did we start at? We didn't start out with Vertex, right? What software?
No. We our first
was it Fast Tax or something?
Yeah, I was going to say Fast Tax is probably what you used, because it was out of Carrollton.
Yeah, exactly.
You would write numbers on a piece of paper and someone else would input it.
I think so.
That's how we did returns at Arthur Anderson. I never did sales tax returns, but we used Fast Tax, CLR Fast Tax.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
You fill out some paper forms. You take it down to the data input team, because we didn't have computers. You take it to the data input team. They'd input it, and it was expensive because then they print out the returns. You go through it and you cross out all the things you don't like. And then you have to take it back to the dreaded data input team so they can correct your errors. And they judge you based on how many times you keep running the same returns through. So it's so interesting, such a different world. So my guess is it was Fast Tax is what you were using for sales tax return. So anyway, doing that, I don't know if there's a bigger, salespeople is a big hinge point. and then moving into sales tax returns and becoming very, very good at that.
It was.
The right people doing that service was, and man, was that painful for many years, just trying to learn that, trying to get the right people that would excel in that environment. Painful for everybody, painful for clients. I remember one of our first clients we ever did sales tax returns for, we did them manually, and we were billing them like $50,000 a month. That same client, we would probably bill $500 a month now.
Right.
So it's such an extreme that it's even hard. That's not fair probably to bring that one up. Another one that was a golf course management company. We did all their returns by hand, and we were losing money, but we were billing them like $7,000 a month to do like 8 returns. And the staff people hated doing it. The client, we would find errors in it, and they were like, "You're billing us way too much, and you're not even doing them right." So painful.
It was. The software just hadn't caught up with
Right.
everybody else.
So now it's we do thousands and thousands of returns every month, and it's really a beautiful service.
Right.
Those are my 2 hinge points. Other than choosing the right partner, I shouldn't even have skipped that one at all.
Me too.
Jerry and I were partners for 25 years, right, Jerry? At least 25.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And for a while, we didn't have a partnership agreement. We made one sort of thinking, well, if one of us dies, we better have something written. But a partnership agreement is good, in case someone needs to read it.
Right.
But working as partners, and I could never have done this business on my own. And it would have been misery. I can't imagine choosing a better partner.
Me too. We've said that 100 times. We had the ultimate, I think you need in a partnership, and that was trust. And we were both honest, and we never took money that didn't belong to us. We split everything right down the middle. Any profits of the firm after we made, paid our people, paid bonuses, we agreed upon how much we take, and that's all we took. And it didn't matter if, who was handling what checks. I mean, it was all out there. And we just always, had deep trust and love for each other. And, it continues today. And there was, you couldn't, like you said, I couldn't ask for a better partner. I mean, I couldn't have picked a better guy. Just couldn't have done it. And, I think it's reflected in our families. We have really good families, and, all that stuff just bubbles over. It's just really, it's just one of those things that was meant to be, I guess.
In a lot of ways, we spent more time together than with our own wives.
We did.
So,
We absolutely did.
yeah, that's the number one and most important thing, who you work with, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear
together you figure out how to address the issues that come up.
Yeah. I hear stories about how people stiff other people, and I just think, man, I never slept. I never worried about a day about anything like that happening.
No, never occurred to me.
Me neither.
Impossible, right?
Right. And it's from the bottom of my heart. So I think that's just a good foundation, and I think anybody that worked with us felt it. They knew that you and I were great partners. We got along together, and they could trust us. We never stiffed anybody, and we shared the wealth when it came to bonuses and things. So we kept people for a long time. And I think another thing, people that left our firm were very successful in going on to other firms. You can look around, you'll see, those folks in other CPA firms doing the same thing they've always done. They got a lot of boost in their career from working at Peisner Johnson, and I guarantee they never regret it.
Yeah. Yep. There's partners in Big Four. I mean, there's people that have gone on their own. I always am glad to see people be successful, and I take a lot of pride in that. Maybe you have to earn it on your own. I'm not saying anything for free, but if you were better off after having worked for us, then
That's good
awesome.
for you. Right. Exactly right. Exactly right. So,
Here's one thing that Ryan had asked, but we haven't answered is how did we come up with the name? Because that was not our first choice. You know, the name of Peisner Johnson does not exactly
you're
roll
right.
off the tongue,
You're,
right?
you're,
For marketing purposes, we had a great name.
we did.
We still own the company, right?
Right.
So our great name, and we wanted it to be a CPA firm, was Multi-State Tax Solutions. And we still own the company that's called Multi-State Tax Solutions. And that is the company we own and operate under for our first year, starting June 15th, 1992. But a chance conversation with somebody, I don't remember, it may have been Chris Collis,
Yeah.
said something like, wait, you guys are a CPA firm? Yeah, we're a CPA firm. You can't be a CPA firm and call yourself Multi-State Tax Solutions.
That's right.
What? Right. You have to have your name in the firm. And so we did a little investigation, and sure enough, yeah, we were operating the wrong type of entity with the wrong name.
Right.
And so, we had logos, we had it all. But it really,
Excellent.
letterhead, back when letterhead was a thing. And then we had to switch over. Naturally, we're going to call it Peisner Johnson. It's not going to be Johnson Peisner. That would be really, but so Peisner Johnson it was. And so ever since then, we've been Peisner Johnson.
Yeah.
Now we've shortened it. And I think for all public facing purposes, it's still Peisner Johnson. But we've shortened it to just Peisner Inc. because I think that's, I don't know. A lot of people refer to us as Peisner. And so I'm good with that.
Well, they know the name. The name's been around 25 plus years. So it's, that's amazing when you think about it. A lot of businesses don't last, but 3 to 5 years, maybe, if that long. Think about it, man. We've been around 25 years. Incredible.
Longer than that.
Longer than that.
Yeah, we're almost at 30 now.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost 30.
Yeah.
Amazing. And another great thing that a lot of people would advise you not to do is to have family members working in the firm. So Jerry is his oldest son, well, only son, Dan. We hired him out of college and kind of twisted his arm to switch his emphasis from IT to tax consulting. And Dan is still with the firm, and my oldest son, Ryan, is obviously with the firm still. And I take a great deal of satisfaction in that too.
Right. Me too. Me too. I would have never have guessed we'd have family members in the firm. I just never thought Dan would work for Peisner Johnson because he was an IT guy, but the 2008 downturn in the economy afforded him, well, I didn't afford him the opportunity, but I said, look, you're not going to sit home and do nothing. You come on to work for us, we'll pay you X amount per hour. And then when the market picks up, you can leave. And he worked for, who's a big,
Daniel.
He worked for Daniel, and he got involved in a really, really big audit. And he finally figured out, hey, man, I love dealing with tax law. That's what he had to do. He had to learn tax law to handle this audit. And he's really enjoyed it. So that changed his whole mind. And he said, I want to stay on full time. I thought, you got to be kidding me. I could have never made it work about it. Try it. It just happened.
And now he's our chief audit fighter.
Right.
He's really, really good at that. So
he's technically very, very good. I agree with you. He really is. I check myself with him just to make sure I'm not shooting in the dark a lot of times. No, but he is. He's done a great job of picking up on this stuff, and he enjoys the work. He really enjoys the work.
And I think our final key thing that we did is to figure out a way that the firm can exist beyond our active involvement.
Right.
And so figuring that out and setting up the parameters and that people in the future can use, and to remove ourselves from the active daily management was the final great thing that we were able to do.
Right.
That way the value keeps going on,
Right.
not just for founders, but there's a hope in the future that for people as they grow older and more experienced, they see that it's not just going to be Andy and Jerry working until they're 95, and then there's opportunity for up and comers, and that was probably the final great thing we did.
Right. So the transition was smoothly done. Andy and the firm that we hired were able to figure out a great way to do it. And of course, I was being the older one. I went up first at a young age of, I believe, 69 or 68. I can't remember exactly how old it was. And so I guess you're about to follow me, follow my footsteps. And so life lives on, life moves on.
And the firm moves on.
Firm moves on. Firm's
awesome to see. And
Yeah.
in most ways, at least my perspective is, the firm is better than ever.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think we've got people in there. Jason Parr was one of our early acquisitions. I can't remember exactly when he came to work. It must have been 90, maybe 94, 93, 94. I don't remember.
94, somewhere.
Yeah. He was awfully young guy, what, 21 or 22. And so he came up through the ranks and stuck with us. And he's a good leader. He's done well and taken over the affairs of the firm. And all in all, I don't think we could ask for anything more. I think he's got solid background. He's a good guy. He's got good interpersonal skills, and he works very well with people. He's an honest person, and whoever becomes his partner down the road, I'm sure they'll work very well together.
All right, Ryan, does that answer your question there?
Answered all of them. So thank you guys for jumping on and telling us your story. I think a lot of people will be very interested. I think most of the people at the firm have probably never met you, Jerry. I mean, they've probably heard of
Right.
you.
You're right.
And same with Andy. I mean, Andy's been gone long enough to a lot of the staff have probably not even seen you. I'm sure they've heard your names. I mean, they know Dan well.
Right.
So I'm excited to show the firm the story of Peisner Johnson, why they should be proud of where they're at and kind of see where it started. And so, and not only just the firm, but I think, a lot of people would be interested to see and hear Peisner Johnson's story. I think they'll find a deeper connection and really enjoy just hearing your story.
Great. That's great. Well, like I said, if Peisner Johnson, I think, is one of the best things that ever happened to me, and I'm sure Andy feels the same way. We didn't look at it as, it was a business, but it was fun. It was the goals were to help people, and I think that makes it so much different than just putting a product out. You're selling something over the counter. We felt like when we got through the people, we did something really good for them, whether we helped them with an auto liability, whether we helped find money they didn't know was existing, explain to them how the laws should be handled as far as their business operations go. That was, to me, was great, great calling and a great profession for me. And personally, I enjoyed every minute of it. And again, it wasn't like drudgery or going to work. I enjoyed every day of it.
Amen. Amen.
There we go.
What a pleasure it's been, not only to have all those years of working together, but our continued association. It's just a very rich blessing to have worked together and still be good friends.
Exactly.